All right. Ready to roll?
Ready to roll.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Garett Lockhart with Twin Monkeys Beverage Systems. I'm here with Don Marcil from Stout Tanks and Kettles. And we thought we would put together something about navigating production and packaging as a small craft brewer. So hopefully there's some helpful tips and tricks for you in here, and maybe cover some stuff that you possibly didn't think about. And feel free to hit us in the comment section if you've got any questions. And also wanted to thank the sponsors today for making sure this content stays free. So thanks to Aseptic Fruit Purees, easy for me to say. And also thanks to Jason Sleeman, the brewery lender. Actually known Jason for several years now, and one of the best guys helping people secure funds in crafts. So reach out to him if he can help you with funding. So a little bit about myself. Sorry about that, Don. A little bit about myself. 10 years in the brewing industry before I joined on with Twin Monkeys about 2 years ago. And now I help brewers find the right canning machine for their operations. So Don, go ahead, man.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure we got the third sponsor in there, craftbreweryfinancialtraining.com as well. Just like Garett, who had a time in the brewery and has now made his way into the canning side. I had time in the brewery and made my way over to the stainless side as far as the vessels and the systems. And it's just great to be here and be able to get people more informed about the industry as a whole. And hopefully, like he said, we'll have a few bits of wisdom to share, and hopefully be able to have some good questions later on that we can answer for you. So with that, I'm going to get started with the slideshow and let Garett take the lead on some of the talk here. I'll get the slides moving here in just 1 second. All right.
All right. So canning costs and benefits. Is it right for you? What we've seen over the last few years is that canning machines absolutely saved a ton of breweries out there when we were in peak lockdown. Hopefully we'll never ever have to go through that ever again. But it is nice to have the ability to, have multiple outlets for your beer besides just draft and inside your tap room. So more brand awareness, more reach. So even if you're a taproom brewery and you're focused on supplying beers for your taproom, one thing to consider is that if you take those beers home, if your customers take those beers home and put them in your fridge, your brand is going to be in front of them every time they open up their fridge, or if their friends come over, reach in to grab a beer, that's your brand inside their fridge. So a lot of brand awareness when you have cans to go. Additional revenue stream, kind of touched on this a little bit before, but outside of draft and tap room, this is a great way to get your beer into the market through canning. And then another one, less overindulging in the tap room. Like, sometimes people are there enjoying themselves, and we have to be responsible when we're all participating in the alcohol industry. So you can encourage people to grab a 4-pack and take that thing home with them instead of hanging in your tap room and overindulging.
Absolutely. Yeah. And post-COVID, we learned everybody had to pivot. There was a heavy swing to the direct to customer base, and canning fits that really well. Just being a great package that's nice and light and easy to get out there. So having a canning option for every brewery, I think, is a great idea. So let me move to the next slide here.
So why can it? Popularity of cans. It's pretty rare to see a brewery in bottles anymore these days. I think you see some of the big brands who still have tons of set placements in grocery stores, still bottling, but it's pretty rare now. Cans are lightweight for shipping, makes them great for getting stuff to distributors outside of your market. For those of you who are in states where you can ship beer to people, it's lighter cost to do so there. They're super durable. You can drop cans on the floor and usually nothing's going to happen to them. They're portable. If you think about where people are consuming beers, if you're going to go to the pool, glass is frowned upon at the pool. If you're going to go to the beach, oftentimes glass isn't allowed there. If you're going to be on a boat, anything like that, there's not a lot of opportunity for glass there. So cans are a great option in those situations. I think it just opens up more opportunities for consumers to take your brand with them. Easily recycled, that's absolutely true. Aluminum is the #1 recycled beverage container in the entire world. So there's lots of infrastructure built around supporting the recycling of aluminum. Also UV protection. Light cannot penetrate aluminum, so it's going to protect your beer from UV rays and prevent it from getting skunky. And then securely seamed. I mean, this probably works for bottles too if you've got a good capper, but those seals on a properly seamed can are secure.
Yeah, and that's funny because one of the good old fashioned tests for a seam on a can is to be able to stand on it. And I've seen some people just stand on it and they don't even move. So, I mean, a secure seam will definitely be a nice protective package there. And a lot of times you're getting a much better DO set up there as well, because you can cap on foam just like you do in a bottle. But those seams, if they're holding straight and they're holding fine, they're going to protect that beer for the long haul. So, all right. You want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. One of the benefits from canning is to be able to capture dollars inside the tap room. If consumers are going to make the trip to come see you at your brewery, enjoy your product inside your tap room, why not give them another opportunity to take beers home? Again, that's going to put your brand right inside their fridge. And then capture dollars outside of the tap room. So if you're going to self-distribute, or if you're going to use a traditional distributor in your markets, well, this is a way to capture dollars outside the tap room. Pretty self-explanatory there, I suppose.
Yeah. And this comes up more often when you have these smaller brew pubs or smaller tap rooms where you've maxed out all of your seating. And with that maxed out seating now, how do you still bring in more revenue? Having that to-go fridge filled with beer ready to go is a nice way, or having that direct-to-customer capability, which hopefully will take hold everywhere. I know there's a lot of places that still have some difficulty with it. There's plenty of places that even after COVID, it has held strong. We'll just have to see what happens with in due time. But yeah, just making sure that you're not just stuck with one avenue of revenue. Having both available to you is going to lead to a healthier business. So, all right.
Right. Distribution, grow your business. Tap room feels too small for your business. If you've got a big old brew house, maybe you've got a 15-barrel brew house with 30-barrel bright tanks that you double batch into, or 20-barrel brew house with 40-barrel tanks that you're batching into. You're probably at the point where you're outpacing the amount of beer that your tap room can possibly handle. So it starts to look at growing your business outside. And distribution, there's a lot of ways to do this. There's in states where you're allowed, you can do some self-distribution. If you're not in a state like I'm here in Georgia right now, and we're not allowed to self-distribute, so you have to use a traditional distributor. There's lots of ways to get your beer out there. More marketing for your brand. I think there was a study done that said that if you walk by a brand for the first time, you don't really notice it. The second time you might notice it, but you don't really think about it. But the third time you see that brand, you start to say, wow, I'm starting to see this stuff everywhere. I should give it a try. So having your brand in more places is going to get more visibility and more opportunities for people to try it and hopefully come back to it multiple times. More product in the wild, social media opportunities. So, if you're putting your brand in a to-go format, and then you see somebody take a picture with your brand at the beach, your can in their kayak, whatever they're going to do, I think it's just great opportunities to repost that stuff and get more exposure for your brand in general.
All right. Excellent. All right. So self-distribution, it varies by state. So just like Garett had said, certain states don't even allow it at all. Others force you, they're going to force you to the 3-tier system, which is kind of not fun actually, because selling your keg to a distributor to have it then sold back to another entity, whether it might even be your own tap room, which is not fun. But if in states that do allow self-distribution, I think it's just such a strength for you as far as being able to get out there, have a direct relationship with the customer. A lot of times you're going to, in states that allow it, direct to customer sales, even if not, just having a direct relationship with maybe even just mom and pop's grocery stores that you can get your beers out at is huge. So it does come with the idea, though, that you do have to maintain the logistics involved. So there is a benefit. There is also something that you manage on your end as well. But if it's properly managed, you can have some of the freshest beer straight from the source, where you can get it out there to the small, like I said, small mom and pop shops, or getting those kegs out to key accounts that are going to then drive people into your business. And then the margins are much healthier, but you also have to pay for logistics. So the nice part is you kind of almost become the distributor in a lot of ways, and capture some of that for yourself. All right. I'll let Garett take this one here for traditional distributors.
Yeah, traditional distributors. Yeah. So, I think a lot of times, touching on the self-distribution I talked about, in states that allow you to self-distribute, this is a great way. It's kind of a proving ground for you to self-distribute before you go into traditional distribution. But, in my time at the brewery that I worked for, the last part of my career there before I joined Twin Monkeys was directly working with distributors. And there's a lot of challenges there. They have very crowded portfolios, lots of competition within their portfolio. But there are some pros to working with a traditional distributor, especially if your brand's growing, reaching otherwise unattainable markets, right? It's, if you're, say, here in Georgia and you want to get to Alabama, well, there's no way to really do that. If you think about the cost of adding, warehousing with cold storage and, a team of people to go out and deliver beer and maintaining delivery trucks and all of that, that's probably not attainable for most small brewers. So working with a distributor in that market to help you get into other markets that you want to reach is a great way. It's that there's a great need for distributors in that sense. So if you sell well, you can gain some leeway. There are some small brands out there. We have a customer we're working with in the Nashville area that their brand is so hot that the distributor allowed them to sign a contract that was very favorable to the brewery, which is almost unheard of these days. Usually those are lifetime commitments that kind of go one way. But if you're doing well in certain markets, it might allow you to gain leeway in other markets. And then greater brand recognition. The more shelves that your brand is on, the more people are going to see your brand and continually, hopefully, go back to it. Some of the cons behind working with traditional distributors are signing a contract. It creates a commitment. I know that here in Georgia, when you sign a contract with the distributor, it's a lifetime commitment. It's hard to get out of those. There's ways, but it's very, very difficult. Not allowed to share pricing with other breweries. This is dependent on each state, but I do know that if you're selling to a distributor here in Georgia, you're not allowed to call up your buddy and say, "Hey, what are you charging, X distributor for your IPA?" You're not allowed to share that information. So just something to keep in mind as you're looking at working with the distributor. And then obviously this cuts into your margins. Oftentimes, I think distributors make more than brewers do on your own product. So just something to consider. And then you've got a percent added on at each step. Initial pricing is important to avoid higher shelf price. I think one of the ways that you can think about this is, what price do you want the consumer to ultimately pay for your product, and then work backwards, knowing that the retailer's got to get a markup, knowing that the distributor's got to get a markup, and then you've got to be comfortable with that selling point to the distributor. So lots of people who get their cut when you go in the traditional distribution route. But again, if you have the volume to justify it, and you have the capacity to keep up with that volume, definitely something to consider.
Yeah. And to add to some of this, I think the pros, the capabilities of distributors to get your point of sale out there where people can see it and just have easy availability, handling all the logistics that you're not at that point in time. Just the larger you get, the harder it is to manage all of that. So a lot of times the self-distribution route really works well for smaller breweries. I have seen some that have gotten pretty considerable in size that maintain the self-distribution for a while. And that is with the idea that a distributor will come and buy their portfolio, which is another thing. So just like you signing a contract with a distributor is a very much permanent setup in just about every state, I would say. There is buyouts that do happen. For instance, if, the brewery I was at, we changed distributors. Now, the new distributor purchased our brand from the old distributor and had to pay a certain amount times annual. And the same thing can happen to a small brewery. I know a few here that have done it where they self-distribute, but then when it comes time to sign that agreement, and they're ready to sign an agreement with a distributor, the distributor now has to pay them a certain amount times their annual. These are markets that customer's already built up, and the distributor doesn't get them for free. But I've seen in some cases where that was used to then fund equipment purchases for major expansions and things like that. So it can work both ways, but definitely get some sound legal advice, look over your contracts, talk to other brewers. I think that's a huge thing to consider when you're determining your distributor. And then even in the current day, distributors get sold. So now if they sell to someone else, how are they going to treat your contract? Do you have the ability to get out of the contract if they sell? These are all things to consider when you get into that realm. So, all right, we'll move on here. Here you go, Garett.
Sure. So a couple of nice looking Twin Monkeys canning machines right there. So some tech advancements, evolution of micro canning. These pieces of equipment have come a long way over the last decade, I'd say. So focus on DO levels. Your dissolved oxygen levels obviously are crucial to the shelf life of your products. So make sure that, you're asking those questions and make sure that the canning machine has proven that it can get low dissolved oxygen numbers. At Twin Monkeys, we always tell our customers that we can get 20 parts per billion or better off of our fillers. So, just make sure you're asking those questions. Scalable options, depending on the size of your production. You want to find out how well that canning machine can grow with you as your production grows. Sometimes you're going to be limited and have to buy completely, but usually that's a great problem to have. So find out what those scalable options are. We've got several of them that we can help with. Seaming technology. This is an important one. I worked the brewery that I worked at. We had a big rotary counter pressure filler, and we had a seamer that was very difficult to dial in. It's one of the reasons why I'm with Twin Monkeys now, because I love the seamers and I love the way that they were set up. They're very easy to adjust and keep in spec. So just ask those questions. What type of seaming technology are you using? Cam driven is great. Ours are pneumatic driven, but we use mechanical advantage of a tangential angle to get really repeatable seams time and time again. So again, just make sure you're asking those questions on the seaming technology of the line that you're looking at. Auto fill levels. You want to be able to make sure that you're able to easily adjust the fill levels on your canning machine. We actually have a feature on our machines that allows the machine to automatically make adjustments based on the weight of the product after it's seamed. There's lots of ways to rinse cans. Twist rinse is probably the most popular that you guys see out there, coming off a depalletizer into the twist rinse and then into the machine. We also have our can flip and rinse feature that you can use without having a depalletizer. We have an in-feed funnel that gravity feeds down into the machine, and then we'll flip 3 cans at a time over before they go into the pre-purged tubes and then into the fill tubes. So nano canners are widely available now. Twin Monkeys was the first company to create a nano one-head canning machine that I'm aware of. It's a semi-automated machine. It can go about 10 to 15 cans per minute. You're seeing more and more of them out there now. Nitrogen dosing. This is for people who are going to do stuff. I mean, you can obviously use a nitrogen doser to try to help with dissolved oxygen levels in your beer. However, that's not the primary reason why we see them on machines. It's typically for products that do not have CO2 in them. So you need some type of gas in that can, and nitrogen works really, really well. We see it with our coffee customers, with our still wine customers. We do a great job at Twin Monkeys integrating them right into the touchscreen, so you control the doser right from the touchscreen on the machine. Makes it nice, convenient, and saves you a little bit of money instead of having to buy a separate control unit. You've got choices now when it comes to the way you fill. You can do counter pressure fill, or you can do atmospheric filling. We can do both. Both have their advantages and maybe their disadvantages. Counter pressure filling is great for stuff that's really high volumes of CO2. Takes a little bit longer to fill when you do a counter pressure fill. And then another feature that we offer at Twin Monkeys is our automated tank pressure controller. This is a very cool line. We have people that don't even have our canning machines that come to us for this feature. It's basically a sensor that reads the pressure off the bottom of your tank and automatically sends CO2 to the top of your bright tank that you're packaging off of. It'll maintain a nice consistent pressure so that you don't have to run back to your bright tank and check it every 15, 20 minutes. So you'll get nice, steady, even fills with this control unit. So some cool features of our canning machines. And there's a lot of other of our competitors who have some similar stuff out there too. Don, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I think when we might get into it in a little bit, but the big difference, counter pressure is going to be a bit slower, but a lot of people are going to find that if you distribute and you go long distances or you have a wide reach, this was one of the reasons why the brewery I was at went from an atmospheric fill system to then go to a counter pressure system, was for the enhanced shelf life, the lower DO capability. I think if it's well run, like you said, even an atmospheric fill can get a nice low DO, but that counter pressure fill almost guarantees it, which is nice. So you end up getting that longer shelf life, protecting the flavor of your brand, because you may have, with the pickup of dissolved oxygen, some flavors that start to either dissipate or start to show up. If you have a very hoppy beer, a lot of times if you have dissolved oxygen, you're going to lose your hop presence. If you have a beer that is not sealed well with DO in there, all of a sudden you might have cardboard papery kind of flavor pop out, So all the technology is there. All the technology has evolved and is so much more approachable than even 5 years ago. And I know when I first started canning, probably now about 8 years ago, I would say the options were much less. And now you have a lot of these machines that are much more approachable in cost and have so many more features. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll pop over to the next slide here.
So some tech advancements, easier, more efficient. So get some training from a tech. This is a service that we offer. It's a commissioning when you order your machine and it gets delivered. Send a tech out to help with the install of your machine. And then we'll also train you on how to use it, give you tips and tricks on the touch screen, show you just the things that you want to know to make your canning day easier. So they are easy to learn systems. It's not a requirement to get commissioning on our lines, but we recommend it for anybody who's not canned before. The CIP process on the machine is very similar to what you're going to do in your brew house. It can be actually a little bit easier though, because you're just going to push a button. Once you bring chemical to the line to clean, you push the CIP button on the machine, and the machine will take over for you and do the CIP process for you, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And learning this process is important. I can't stress enough what Garett said, where it's probably a good idea if you haven't done any canning to get that training, because being the last step on the process, it's quite possible that you could take a perfectly great product and you could destroy it if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to a can, or even that goes for bottling or any sort of packaging. But definitely having that training definitely helps. So let's see what we have here. So yeah, we have, the materials that are involved these days. Aluminum was hard to get during COVID. It seemed like there was, I don't think there was anybody that didn't finally get their hands on it, but it was definitely more of a challenge to get your hands on aluminum during that time. Some things that came to light are that Ball Corporation's opening up some new factories, so that's going to increase capabilities. When we see the dynamic of bottled versus canned, it has flipped entirely from what it used to be. I remember when I first started brewing, it was probably a good 70-30 bottles to cans. And then that has definitely flipped at least the opposite direction, if not more. I would say it's probably a good 80-20. The canning stigma that was associated for years just has kind of totally been proven false, where people said, "Oh, I don't want to drink out of a can," or we found out that it's a superior package, and that has led to people using it. And also with the cost of fossil fuels, it's so much lighter in order to transport. It's so much more protected. So it's turned out to be a great way to go. And now even the small breweries can take advantage of that. And then lastly, glass in a lot of places in the United States is just not recyclable. Having those facilities costs a lot of money. And then with the use of glass being less and less, the support for those facilities is not around. So I know here in Portland, we have a great glass recycling center, but at the same time, that doesn't fall for the entire country that they have that set up as well. So I think we're seeing that cans are here to stay and they're not going anywhere. So I don't know. Do you want to add anything to that, Garett?
Maybe just one part about the cans, and that old kind of thought about nobody wanting to drink out of cans because it made their beverage taste like aluminum. Well, there's been a lot of advancements. There's actually liners that are sprayed on the inside of the cans now, so the product actually never touches aluminum. What sold me was when I found out our brewery was deciding whether or not we wanted to install a canning line and get away from bottles. When I found out that Sierra Nevada did a double-blind taste test and they actually preferred the product out of the can than they did the bottle, that was all I needed to hear. So we made that decision back in, I think 2013.
Awesome. So yeah, on the production and packaging side, planning for the space, and one of the things that I experienced myself was the brewery that I was at. We had started with atmospheric fill. I won't name the name of the canner, but we had a canner that was an atmospheric fill. We were one of their earliest customers, and the the idea was that in order to get your best fill, distance was an important factor from the bright tank to the canner, because you wanted to maintain not only a good head pressure, but also the bright tank. We typically would use a jacketed bright tank because temperature was key. So we wanted to keep that beer cold to get the best fills we possibly could. All of the lines that we used were going to be insulated hose. And if they went over distance, even during the summer, it was possible that I would go to like Home Depot and get like pipe insulation and just put it around it just to make sure it didn't warm up, because once it starts warming up, you get a lot of breakout, and then you also have a lot of loss. So you want to keep all those variables into play. You want to make sure that you have good pressure, not too far of a distance. If you do have a longer distance, a product pump comes into play. A product pump in some cases is actually not going to necessarily be the pump that you see there. There's special ones that have less shear force so that they don't churn up your beer in the process. That one is a centrifugal pump there, but the product pumps are going to have a little bit larger of a cavity there. They're not going to churn up the carbonation that's in there as much. And, having that to assist is going to get you better fills. Obviously, each brewery is going to be its own little puzzle. So whatever comes in way of you setting up for your canning day, just take all of those variables into consideration. Anything to add, Garett?
No, well, the other type of pump you could use is a diaphragm pump. I've had success using those in the past to get increased pressure to the canning machine.
Okay, cool. All right. Production and packaging, it comes down to the beer. Each beer is its own beast, and is difficult to package at times if you have certain beers that just don't want to work right. This is all part of the learning curve of running a packaging line, whether it be canning or bottling. But on the canners, because we have those atmospheric fills, that learning curve could take a little bit. You just have to make sure that the product that's going in there. You have to have a way to test it. So knowing the amount of CO2 volumes is huge. This is a must, whether it be from a simple tap right that's $400 or $500 to a Nagel that's maybe $1,500 to $2,000 to a Gehaltometer that's about $12,000. Knowing those volumes in the CO2 is super important. And then knowing that when you reach a point where you have such high carbonation as like maybe 2.9 volumes or so, you want to really consider counter pressure filling, because at that point it becomes very difficult to package a product like that on a canner without that feature. And then once again, temperature, we want it cold to maintain that CO2 in solution. We also want to learn the styles, each of these different styles. Sometimes you have big body beers like a stout that's going to can differently than a Pilsner that's a lighter body and has more carbonation. So, Garett, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you got it all.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, that brings us to our end. So hopefully we have an opportunity to answer some questions here. In the end, you're bringing your craft to the world. You want to take that product that you've slaved over, that you just truly want to see your customer enjoy. And then you're also going to build your community. Being part of craft, we give back to the community. This is all part of it. We want to make sure that everybody has smiling or crazy faces like in that picture and are enjoying themselves. So anything to add here, Garett?
No, I mean, if there's anything that we can help with, Stout, Tanks, and Don on that side of things, and then me and my crew over at Twin Monkeys, we're happy to help any way we can. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section. We'll hang tight for a second to see if anything comes up. And thanks for taking the time to listen to us chat. And thanks again to the sponsors. And thanks to Andrew at Craft Beer Professionals for putting this on. This stuff is huge. I know I didn't have a resource like this when I started out in the craft beer industry, and it would have been awesome to have it. So thanks to Andrew and everything he's doing.
Yeah, and I definitely want to thank Garett for joining me on this, because Stout and Twin Monkeys have had a great relationship for quite some time, and now being able to do this together, that's huge. Being able to capitalize on the strengths of both companies. So,
yep.
All right. Just give that a second. While we wait, we might also, I don't know if there's any wisdom that you might impart in the canning world to others there, Garett, things that you've seen that maybe would help people along the way in their journey, determining what's right for them, or any potential positive things that can help them in their courses. They're determining whether or not canning is right for them.
So, well, sorry, you were a little choppy there in the end of that, but there's what I would say is, reach out, to Twin Monkeys. My email address is just GarettL@twinmonkeys.net, and let's have a conversation. Let's figure out how to make it work for you. So, but I think that's it for us. Again, reach out if we can help, and thank you again for the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. Yeah. And likewise on our website, you can reach out to myself or Mike Palladino with any questions that you have. We're happy to answer. And thank you for your time today. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Garrett. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Alex.